He was coming to the airport. I was going to pick him up. I then realized that it was a scam, and I'm devastated by it. Sorry.
The pandemic created conditions that had no precedent in living memory. Isolation became policy. Connection became risk. The ordinary channels through which people meet, workplaces, gatherings, chance encounters, were systematically closed. For those who lived alone, the distance between themselves and others became measurable not in miles, but in months. Barbara Grant went online during this period. She was searching for connection. The word lonely appears in the framing, but loneliness during the pandemic was not personal failure. It was structural. The world had been redesigned to prevent exactly the kind of contact she was seeking. An online dating site was not desperation. It was adaptation, the only available method for reaching another person without violating public health directives. Michael Janda appeared quickly. His language was immediate and declarative. "You are gorgeous. I want to be with you. I want to have a home with you in Victoria." The specificity of Victoria is significant. It is not a generic destination. It is a place, a city she could visualize, where a future could be imagined, where a home might actually exist. The promise was not abstract. It was geographic. Within weeks, the crisis arrived. He had been arrested in Qatar. He needed money. The speed of this transition is structurally important. The relationship had not yet developed the depth that would normally precede financial requests, but the pandemic had compressed everything. Time moved differently. Intensity accelerated. What might have taken months in ordinary circumstances happened in weeks because the circumstances were not ordinary. She sent money, several times. Each transfer was a response to a specific emergency, embedded within a relationship that felt genuine precisely because it had arrived during a period when genuine connection was so desperately needed. The psychological leverage was not manufactured. It was inherited from the conditions of the moment. The pandemic did not create the scammer, but it created the environment in which his tactics became more effective. The realization came at the airport. She was waiting to pick him up. He contacted her through LinkedIn, a different platform, an unexpected channel, to say he had been locked up again. The location shift, the platform shift, the repeated arrest, the accumulation of improbabilities finally exceeded her capacity to sustain belief. The threshold had been crossed. The fiction collapsed.
It was a search for connection during the lonely pandemic period. Barbara Grant went on an online dating site and found Michael Janda.
We started talking to each other. He said, "You are gorgeous. I want to be with you. I want to have a home with you in Victoria."
Within weeks of the relationship, Janda told Grant he'd been arrested in Qatar and needed money, so she sent it several times, believing until one fateful day that the man she met was real.
He contacted me through LinkedIn and he said, "I can't come to Calgary. They've locked me up again." He was coming to the airport. I was going to pick him up. I then realized that it was a scam.
She lost $800,000.
I have nothing left except what's left in my RIF, and I'm devastated by it. Sorry.
400 pages, each page representing approximately $2,000. The private investigator's report is not merely documentation. It is a physical manifestation of loss, a stack of paper heavy enough to hold, thick enough to measure, each sheet corresponding to money that no longer exists in any account she can access. She forwarded this report to the Ombudsman for banking services and investments. The institution exists precisely for situations like hers, disputes between customers and financial institutions, questions of responsibility and liability, the gray areas where individual harm intersects with systemic process. Her claim was denied. The explanation involves jurisdiction. The people who took her money are not within reach of Canadian law enforcement. They operate from locations that do not cooperate with international investigations. The cost of pursuing them exceeds the budgets allocated to police departments for this purpose. The infrastructure of justice is not designed to address crimes that cross borders through wire transfers and encrypted channels. The money moved through mules, intermediary accounts that receive funds, extract a percentage, and forward the remainder overseas. Each hop obscures the trail. Each transfer creates another layer between the victim and the ultimate recipient. By the time investigators trace the path, the funds have been fragmented across systems designed to resist exactly this kind of scrutiny. Grant believes her bank has not helped. She names TD directly. She describes a fiduciary responsibility, a legal term that implies obligation, duty, the requirement that institutions protect the interests of those who trust them with assets. The bank, in her view, failed this responsibility. The transfers were processed. The pattern was not flagged. The money left her accounts through systems that functioned exactly as designed. The context is significant. Last year, TD was fined $3.1 billion in the United States for creating what regulators called a convenient environment for bad actors to exploit high-risk customers. In Canada, a similar finding resulted in a $9.1 million penalty. The bank has been formally identified by multiple governments as having enabled the conditions under which exploitation becomes easier. Barbara Grant's $800,000 moved through this environment. The fines represent institutional accountability at scale. They do not represent individual recovery. The money paid by the bank goes to governments, not to victims. The regulatory process and the restitution process operate on parallel tracks that do not intersect. Grant remains with nothing except what remains in her RRIF.
Absolutely devastated.
Grant hired a private investigator to create this report. At 400 pages, each page represents about $2,000 of money she lost. It was ultimately forwarded to the Ombudsman for Banking Services and Interests, but her claim was denied.
Jurisdiction is a huge issue, in regards to finding those individuals. Very costly for police department, no budget to do it.
Who's behind it all? Still a mystery.
The money that being transferred go through a mule and go to a different account. The person takes a percentage and then shifts it overseas.
Grant believes her bank, TD, has not helped.
The bank is not responsible, not accountable. They have a fiduciary responsibility to me to give me some of my money back.
Last year, TD was fined $3.1 billion in the United States for creating what the U.S. government called a convenient environment for bad actors to exploit high-risk customers. In Canada, a similar fine totaled $9.1 million. And the Better Business Bureau says these crimes are severely underreported.
And the reason it's important, again, is so it can be tracked, so these organizations can determine what sort of resources need to be put into this.
Calgary police are still investigating. Grant says she'll have to go back to work as a consultant this fall at age 75. She also sells paintings and dances. She's quite the catch, but don't expect to find her on any dating sites.
No, I have some good friends, and that's it. That's all. I really don't trust a lot of people anymore.
Skylar Peters, Global News.
Barbara Grant is 75 years old. She will return to work as a consultant this fall. The retirement she had funded, the RRIF that should have carried her through her remaining years, is now insufficient. The $800,000 that should have provided security, flexibility, and choice has been distributed through mule accounts to recipients in jurisdictions that Canadian police cannot reach. She sells paintings. She dances. These are not hobbies assembled to fill empty time. They are now potential income streams, methods of survival for a woman who should be past the age of financial necessity. The work she will do at 75 is not passion. It is arithmetic. The Better Business Bureau notes that these crimes are severely underreported. The implication is that Barbara Grant's case is visible only because she chose to speak. Others remain silent, absorbing losses that no one counts, enduring shame that no statistic captures. The $50 million reported annually in Canada is a floor, not a ceiling. The actual figure is unknowable. She has good friends. That is what remains. Not the home in Victoria that Michael Janda promised. Not the partnership that seemed possible during those isolated months. Not the future she had imagined when she responded to a profile during a pandemic that made connection feel both urgent and rare. She does not trust a lot of people anymore. The statement is not bitterness. It is revision, the recalibration of expectation that follows the discovery that the person you trusted was not a person at all, but a process. A room full of people working. A percentage extracted at each stage. A mule account shifting funds overseas. The airport where she waited remains a location in Calgary. The man she was going to pick up never boarded a plane. The home in Victoria was never built. The pandemic has ended, but the isolation it created has not fully lifted, not for her, not in the way that matters.